Apple just had an event, and they released some pretty interesting new iPads. So, are they really that different? Are they really worth it? Well, let's talk about it. The first thing I want to really mention is how much change did these iPads really have? Well, I think these are actually some pretty stinking good upgrades for the iPads, especially when it goes to the Pros. Obviously, the iPad Air didn't really change its design too much. It keeps the same virtually 10.9 inch, even though they call it 11 inch now, 10.9 inch screen on the low end, and they now have a bigger size option of 12.9 inches, which is pretty interesting. And I do think that's actually pretty compelling, and it has the M2 chip now, so it's mostly a spec bump upgrade, but that landscape camera is actually a really nice little upgrade that I wasn't sure if they were going to throw in or not, and that is definitely helpful and could actually encourage some people to go with the M2 12.9 inch iPad Air versus like a refurbished or used M2 iPad Pro. And as far as the Pros go, they definitely had a lot of really cool updates to them. I love how thin they are going to be. It's almost as thin as the Remarkable 2 tablet. It's only 0.4 millimeters thicker on the big one, and I think 0.6 bigger on the smaller one, which is not even a full millimeter thicker. It's going to be really close to the Remarkable in thickness, and that's going to be super cool to see in person, and I'm really excited for that. And if it wasn't clear, the bezels did get thinner on the iPad Pros. They didn't talk about it a lot, but they got a little bit thinner, about 15%. And it's now 11.1 inches and 13 inches versus 11 and 12.9, even though they just call it 11 and 13. But that is the actual size of the screens. So yeah, first impressions, really good actually. I think there's a lot of value in these new iPads, and I think a lot of people are going to love using them. And first thing I want to talk about is they announced a brand new chip today, and that was the M4 chip, which is pretty interesting because they've never actually released a new generation of Apple Silicon in an iPad Pro before, and that's exciting in and of itself. And I think it hints to some bigger changes coming to the iPad Pro as well. The first thing that caught my attention was how much they were name dropping the neural engine throughout the rest of the keynote, and they were really emphasizing the power, the AI processing power this new iPad Pro chip is going to have. And I think that's pointing directly to WWDC, which is only a month away. And they're totally going to be implementing a whole bunch of AI, probably generative AI, really big revamp there for iPadOS 18. And I would not be surprised if we saw several exclusive AI features coming to the iPad Pro as well. I know for some people, they would much rather see macOS or some kind of dual boot system on iPads. For me, that doesn't actually really interest me that much. I actually really like how my iPad works, and I even like iPadOS. There's a couple things that I would like to be a little bit different. I do prefer Finder over the Files app on iPadOS, but that's like the biggest thing for me. I actually enjoyed using their Final Cut Pro version. It just didn't have enough features before, but that actually just changed. They released second versions of both Final Cut Pro for iPad and Logic Pro for iPad. And I think these improvements are actually really, really good. For Final Cut Pro, the big standout features were the new live multicam, where you can actually have an app on your phones and basically stream it to the iPad as a central hub. You can also use the camera on the iPad as well. That's one of them. And have up to 4 different cameras, all live views that you can control. You can tap into one, you can adjust the focus, like all this stuff. It's like a mobile movie studio, and that's super cool. For filming Masters and Martyrs, it actually would have been really helpful to have something like that instead of just the Wirecast system we had to use, and it was kind of disjointed because I had one just recording on an iPhone, I had a couple different cameras recording through Wirecast, and then I had the audio separate, and then I had to combine them all afterwards, throw them all together, and it was messy. So being able to sync them all together just while you're recording, that's pretty nice, and just all on the iPad. That is a powerful feature, and I will give them that. And the other big benefit of the updated version of Final Cut Pro is that it now allows support for external drives to edit from them. And that is huge for me, especially when I was recording Masters and Martyrs videos. Those things would be like hour, sometimes hour 40 minutes, almost 2 hours long of footage, and they were ProRes, so that's like 100, almost 200 gigabytes, and I didn't even record them in 4K. If I did 4K, it would just be crazy, like probably 500 gigabytes per file. And there's just no way I can keep all that on the iPad itself and edit off of it. I had to have it on an external drive. So now, with this new version, I could totally edit Masters and Martyrs videos off my iPad, and that's pretty cool. I think the improvements of Logic Pro were really cool as well, especially the ability to just take a file from a song and just plop it right into the app, push one button, and the AI neural engine just splits it up into vocals, bass, drums, and other instruments, and you can just isolate all those sections for remixing and things like that. That's top notch. That is really cool, and I think a lot of those AI features are going to get even more advanced, especially once WWDC hits. And then something they didn't touch on too much was the ray tracing that this is going to add to the iPad Pros as well. And that's going to help in gaming. It's going to help if you do any kind of 3D modeling, which I have done a lot of 3D modeling on the iPad Pro. If you look at some of the prints we use in Masters and Martyrs, a lot of those I designed on my iPad Pro. So I am all for the iPad Pro becoming more powerful when it comes to 3D modeling. So alright, which ones am I actually going to be getting here to review for you guys? I'm going to be purchasing both sizes of the iPad Pro. I'll be getting the 11-inch iPad Pro in silver at 1 terabyte and with a nano textured display. And then I'll be getting the 13-inch iPad Pro in the space black without the nano texture display, still at 1 terabyte as well. And then for both iPads, I'm going to be getting its size Magic Keyboard, and for the silver one, I'm getting the white one, and for the space black, I'll be getting the black keyboard to kind of match that, and then I can compare colors and how they look in person as well. I will also be getting the Apple Pencil Pro for both of the iPads. And really quick, let's talk about those new accessories, because those are some of my favorite parts about the iPad. And I know some people get annoyed with the iPad accessories where they feel like in order to complete the iPad experience, they need to buy accessories. And I get it, but at the same time, that's kind of the point. It's a very versatile and modular device. So getting these accessories actually just really help complete the experience. But you also can have a great iPad experience with just getting an iPad and using it for iPad things. So that new Magic Keyboard with the aluminum bottom is going to be super nice. And that new trackpad looks awesome. The function row is there. It's basically the Magic Keyboard of my dreams. So I'm super excited to test that out and see how the keys feel. I'm also going to see how cramped they are on the 11-inch size keyboard, if they're too cramped and that's a problem to me, or if they seem pretty full size and just slightly modified. However that ends up being, I'll test that out for you guys as well. And then the Apple Pencils are pretty interesting as well, with those new squeeze gesture that opens up like a menu of tools. I really like that. I wish I had that on my Supernote device actually. I could just squeeze the pen and it opens up different options of tools. I can select one quick. That is handy, and I really like that. And they also like that they put a gyroscope in the pencil itself, so you can measure it yourself turning the pencil and actually turn your tool and get different sides of it and do even better shading and moving of your tool. That's super, super nice. And I'm definitely going to be testing how the new Apple Pencil and the new iPad work versus the Supernote, maybe even versus the Remarkable as well. I kind of want to see which one really is the new king of digital note-taking. Can the iPad come back and steal it from these e-ink tablets? We're going to find out. Lastly, I'm going to go over my recommendations to people when purchasing their own iPads. And first I'm going to say, for the iPad Air, there is definitely a market for the new iPad Air. I think it's a really well done device, and there's going to be a lot of people who buying that device is the perfect choice for. For example, if you're the kind of person who is interested in the MacBook Air and just doing more simple web browsing, not too many hardcore tasks, just surfing the web, watching YouTube, playing some games, things like that, I think the M2 iPad Air is going to be great for that, especially if you want to get the 13-inch screen. It's basically the same size as the smaller MacBook Air, and the Magic Keyboard is the same as the old style, so you can look for some refurbished versions or some pretty cheap I've seen, or even some used ones, and you can complete that setup for a pretty stinking low price. And with them being brand new, I think they will have a lot of longevity to them, and there is a lot that is beneficial about buying the new product. So another way of putting it is, those who just get iPads to try to just be iPads and do more iPad things and simpler tasks, that an iPad Air is going to be plenty for you. And if you always wanted that bigger screen size, but you never wanted to pay over $1,000, which is totally fair, then the bigger iPad Air is going to be a phenomenal choice for you. I also think it's worth mentioning that you should consider at least the M2 iPad Pro that was the last generation, as it is going to be refurbished. It's going to have some used versions, some cheaper options out there, and I think you should at least give it a look, see if you find one for a nice low price, and you might even be able to find it under $800, so that's going to be even cheaper than the brand new 13-inch iPad Air. And as far as what model of the iPad Air you should get, obviously size is more up to you, just which size you think fits you better. And I would go with probably the base storage. They upped it to 128 gigs now, which is awesome. And you can go all the way up to a terabyte. And in my opinion, if you're gonna go that high, you're probably more of an iPad Pro guy. But either way, you can go that high now, and the base storage has doubled. And that's actually really nice. It's actually so nice that I don't really recommend anyone going above the base storage if you're getting an iPad Air, in my opinion. Especially if you pay for some iCloud storage and you have some extras there, I don't think you're going to need anything else. So then when it comes to the iPad Pro, if you're looking to replace a MacBook, this is definitely the one you're going to want to go for, as it is the best chance you have at replacing a MacBook. Especially with that new Magic Keyboard that makes it way more MacBook-like and gives it a lot more MacBook experience with using the trackpad and the keys and the function row, all of that stuff. You're gonna feel like you didn't miss out on a whole lot by getting an iPad versus a MacBook. Another reason to get the iPad Pro is just the new display with the OLED. It's gonna have really nice colors, and it has a reference mode as well that allows you to use it to color grade, and that alone is gonna be super nice. It's as good at color grading, in my opinion, as even like Apple's $6,000 display, and this is much cheaper than that. So even just for a reference for color grading, it's super nice to have. And as we mentioned earlier with those new Pro apps and how they've been updated, I think this is going to be a much more powerful device and something you could potentially replace your computer with. And it can be your new computer. For me, I don't actually have a MacBook or any kind of laptop anymore. I've already been using my iPad Pro as kind of my laptop, and then I have a Mac Studio at home, which I don't think I'm going to get rid of, but this new iPad Pro is definitely going to help me be able to do more on it. And I'm going to try editing all of my videos for at least a time on this new Final Cut Pro. And with the enhancements they made to Stage Manager and iOS 17, I don't personally find it super limiting for multitasking and different windows. I also am not the guy who has 16 different windows open at the same time. I don't really do that very often. It almost distracts me more. So I know for some people's workflow, the Stage Manager does get in the way and it feels clunky. For me, I'm used to it and I like it. I turn it on the Mac as well, and I don't really mind how it resizes things and how they look on the iPad. I'm used to it and I like it. So it doesn't bother me. It's not a problem to me. But I do understand that could be a concern for some people. Then as far as what spec of iPad Pro you should get, I think if you're really trying to maximize performance, have a computer or laptop replacement iPad Pro, you should go up to a terabyte. This is because they limit both the RAM and the chip on the lower storage models. I really wish you could just upgrade the RAM and the chip separately, but they include it all in the jump to the 1 terabyte pricing. So with the 256 gig and 512 gig models, you lose out on 1 performance core and you only get 8 gigs of RAM, versus the 1 terabyte and 2 terabyte models, you get the full 4 performance cores and still the same 6 efficiency cores. And then you also get 16 gigs of RAM versus 8 gigs of RAM. And in my opinion, that's a pretty big jump on specs. So it's worth that high jump and high price point, at least for me. And we're going to see if that really improves things, that really makes this iPad super powerful when editing. And I think it has a really good chance of that. But obviously, if you're just getting the iPad Pro for its thinness, for the display, you're not really trying to replace a laptop or replace a computer with it. You just want to use the new Apple Pencil, the new Magic Keyboard, and do more MacBook Air-like things with it as well, then it totally can go with the lower storage models. Even the base model is going to be good. 256 gigabytes is a really good base storage. I think a lot of people are going to find that that's a very nice option for them. So in conclusion, I think the 2018 iPad Pro had a good run. It was top notch for like 6 years, but I really do believe this new iPad Pro has topped it as just the best iPad Pro ever made. And even though from the front, it doesn't look like there's a huge redesign, it's definitely been redesigned. And this thinness and this new chip inside, it's gonna make the iPad Pro feel brand new again. My order's already been placed. I'm gonna be getting both these models on May 15th, the first day I can, and then I'll be making an unboxing video and initial impressions that day, hopefully release it same day as well, and then I'll start doing some testing and give further reviews as it goes on. I do also want to compare it with some of the e-ink devices I have as well, because I haven't forgotten about them. I'm going to keep tying those in as well and doing reviews on them too, but I think these iPad Pros are going to offer them some good competition. Anyway guys, thank you for watching. Comment below your different use cases you have for an iPad, and if you want me to give any advice on what models I think you should buy, or just how you might use an iPad Pro in general, or an iPad Air even. And if you plan on getting one of these devices, also let me know that in the comments below. I'm gonna have a couple links below to some refurbished iPad Pros as well, in reference to what I was talking about before. So if you want to see some cheaper options besides getting these brand new devices, that might be a good way to go as well. And please share this video, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and I hope you guys have a great day.